So if you're in this room, you want to scale, right? Raise your hand if you want to scale. Raise your hand if you want to go from 6 figures to 8 figures. A couple of us. Other people, why are you here? What are you doing? What's going on? You guys all right? Somebody's just like, I fell asleep from the first session, so it's good. This next speaker, Jason Swenk, is not only just one of the most sought after agency experts on the planet, literally as a consultant, just everybody from AT&T, Hitachi, everybody will actually come and seek him out. He's also a really good friend of mine. And so he's got a great sense of humor. We actually just laughed in the back because I don't know if you are familiar with speakers and how things are set up, but we have different colored microphones sometimes. So he actually has my brown one on, which is really funny, and I've got his, which is nice. What color is this? White. Sir, you're a genius. This is great. So, guys, I'm excited. This is going to be an action-packed 45 minutes for you. You're going to learn a ton. Remember what I said. Let's get selfish. Let's get inside and make sure that you're working on your business, all right? So, everybody, can you please give me a huge welcome for Jason Swenk?
Thanks, brother.
You sure I did?
Yeah, thank you. What's up, New York? I'm originally from New York. I was born in Port Jeff, but I moved down a long time ago and the rednecks took me over, so I talk really, really slow. So I apologize. Now, I've been in the agency world for 20 years. I've been working with amazing agency owners and interviewing amazing agency owners, over 1,000 the past 6 years. And I even ran an agency for 12 years, like Marcus was telling you, working with clients like AT&T and Hitachi. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, 12 plus 6 does not equal 20. Now, after I sold my agency, I thought I was going to create an iPhone app. I thought the grass was going to be greener on the other side, and I just remember the grass is greener on the side you actually water. And I want to share with you the strategies that I learned, the playbook that I've seen from the most successful agency owners in order to scale. Is that fair? Yeah. Okay, great. So in order to do that, I think we got to think about how did we start our agencies. Now, I started my agency because of Justin Timberlake. Now, I don't know Justin. I don't know anybody from NSYNC. But in 1998, I created a fake band, fake tour, fake website called In Shit because one of my best friends looked just like Justin Timberlake. And so it got popular. And then people started asking me, hey, can you design a website for me? And I was like, sure, $500. Right? Why didn't we all start out at $500? I have no idea why. And so I did this for a number of different years. Obviously, I started raising my prices and just kept growing. I mean, I remember my first client, they asked me to send them an invoice. I didn't know what an invoice was. And everybody was like, look it up on Google. I was like, Google wasn't around. I had to ask my dad. And he was like, son, you're never going to make it. I made it. And I really was like kind of fired from every single job I've ever owned. I was unemployable. But when we were designing websites, I was kind of in this fun stage. And some of you have gone through this stage, or maybe you've gone past it, where we're designing websites left and right for hair salons, from realtors, lawyers, anybody that would come to me. We're basically taking on anybody. We're like, you breathe, you have money, I'll help you, right? We've all been there. But I started wanting to get to the next level, and I wanted to hire more people. And so I started realizing as we were going after the bigger companies that I couldn't scale just from referrals. Referrals aren't scalable. And I remember a lot of our business was built on referrals. And how it all works, right? And you guys will probably agree with me. You'll get a referral from someone lesser or at that equal value. So it's hard to scale your business. And you got to keep constantly refreshing your clients and moving upscale in order to grow. I also started suffering from long sales cycles, right? And I'm like, ugh, I can't take this, 6-month pitch and going after these RFPs. And I also started realizing I was taking on the wrong clients, and I was struggling. And I remember getting to a point where I was doing my budgeting, and I would look at my bank account. That's how we did our budgeting back then. Pretty bad, right? Hopefully none of you guys do that. And I was like, oh my gosh, at the time, I think we were around a couple million, had maybe 15 people, so our payroll was pretty big. And not as big as it was when you have 100 people, but a lot less. And I remember going, oh my God, I don't know if we're going to make payroll. and I was completely depressed. And I remember my wife going to me, she's going, well, we're not going to stay married very long if you're constantly depressed and coming back and forth. How many people have kind of gone through this? We're like, man, I just want to kind of close up shop, leave, whatever. And she goes, why don't you just quit? Just quit the agency. Just close it down and go get a job. Right? Now, NASCAR was actually looking for a CMO at this time, and I used to race cars on the weekend. So I was like, that might be a fun job. And I went to them and I asked, and I was interviewing with them, and they asked me two questions that changed everything for me. They asked, Jason, what do you want to do every day? And what don't you never want to do ever again throughout your day? And I started thinking about this. I went back home, and I took an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and I basically put my fist on a piece of paper, and I drew a circle around it to give you a size of how big the circle was. And I started thinking about, through a process of elimination, what is all the stuff I don't want to do? Let's write that on outside the circle. I don't want to deal with clients anymore. I don't want to do invoicing. I don't want to have to do payroll. I don't want to have to do bookkeeping, reconciling books. I literally was doing everything. How many people have been there, right? And then everything in the circle, I started writing down all the stuff I love. And so what this allowed me to do was get clarity. I knew where I was going. See, before I was just kind of taking on any type of business, I was looking around, but I was going in circle. I was in a desert. And you know why people die in a desert? I was talking to good friends in Dubai. You know why people die in a desert? Because they don't have focus and they can't see what they're going after, and they just walk in circles, but they don't know it. I was walking in a circle. I didn't have that clarity. I didn't know who I was going after. I didn't know who I wanted to become. And so I needed to think about, why did we exist? Where did I want to go? So then I had the power to say no, because I was saying yes to everything. I also needed to surround myself with the right people. But I was hiring anybody that would say yes. Especially, I'd be like, oh, you can do web design, you can do SEO, you can do pay-per-click. Come on. I didn't know how to evaluate them. And when I was looking around, I was like, man. And here's a good telltale sign to tell you when to get rid of some of your team. Think of all your team members and rank them this way. If they came into your office tomorrow and they quit, would you celebrate or would you be sad? If you celebrated, you should get rid of them because you're putting off that confrontation. Get rid of them. I've had people too long. And then a way to do this is think of your core values. Now, this is not the bullshit checkmark box going, I did the core values, I put them up on the wall. This is like, what do you live by? What do you believe? Because if you can believe in something and other people believe in it, you'll do great things. But it's not just be like, yeah, whatever, let's go do it. So I want you to imagine this. Imagine you're on a boat, you're driving the boat, and you don't tell people where you're going, right? You know you're going from New York to London. And after about 8 hours, you get tired of driving the boat. You have to go sleep in the cabin. And you tell your crew, wake me up if the boat changes course. How many people have driven a boat? How often does it change course? All the time. So they keep waking me up. I keep going up to the boat, and I keep course correcting it. I go back down. I'm getting frustrated. Steam's coming out of my ears, right? All I had to do is tell them where I'm going. And then I can sleep like a pretty cat, right? I had to put a cat video in. I always joke that my only competition is cat videos and procrastination, so I had to put up my competition. And so what I realized is I needed to do 5 roles. 5 roles. I needed to transform from an agency owner to an agency CEO. So I didn't need to do everything. The first one is set the vision and communicate it often. If they don't want to go to London, get the hell off the boat. And so I would just surround myself with that. But I kept constantly communicating the vision. Like I love Digital Marketer's vision, helping 10,000 businesses double over a couple of years. I mean, Ryan always says that, and everybody believes it, right? I needed to coach and mentor my leadership team only. I do not need to coach everybody. And I don't believe you should have over 5 direct reports. That's too much because you can't learn about them. You can't help them grow. You can't get them to the next level. I needed to be the face of the agency. Now, I know a lot of you are saying, well, Jason, if I'm the face, then everybody's going to want to work with me, and I can't get out of it. You're not that good, okay? People can be a lot better than you. That's what I realized. And also, the best example I can ever use, and you guys probably came all the way here to see Gary, is Gary Vaynerchuk. Do you think Gary is going to work on any client sites or social media strategies? No. And he even jokes about it in his videos. You're not going to get me. I'm not going to promote you. You're working with my team. So get over that fear. The next I needed to realize, I needed to assist sales. I couldn't do all of sales. I just couldn't. And it looked bad if I'm doing all of sales. I needed to assist. And I also needed to understand financials. I didn't need to be a whiz kid at spreadsheets and all that. I just needed to set up what are the KPIs that if I'm on an island, or at the time when I achieved this, I'll tell you kind of the results. I was able to go race whenever we wanted and have a blast. But what are the numbers I need in order to see if the business is growing or doing well? So what is that engine check light? Check engine light, right? That agency check engine light for you. Think of those KPIs, put those right people in place. Now, congratulations, you have these 5 roles, now you're depressed. Right? So I remember, and this was maybe a period of 6 months to get to this level from when I was barely able to make payroll. And then we started growing at multiple millions year over year. And my wife was like, why are you depressed? I'd be like, I'd go into a meeting, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like, can I help? No, I'm good. Go into another meeting, I'm like, can I help? No, I'm good. Okay. And I go home and I'd be like, the business doesn't need me. And my wife, who is very smart, much smarter and better looking than I, said, the business doesn't need you, stupid, for the stuff you used to do. It needs you for the stuff that you designed it to do, those 5 roles. And it went, and every time I walk a private client through this, like I walked one of my clients through it, and they were able to take off the whole summer. And they actually came back, and their business was doing better without them, and they were completely depressed. And I said the same thing my wife said to me. I was like, wake up, stupid. This is what we designed. The business needs you for something else. The next system I realized that will dramatically grow your agency is positioning. I loved when everybody stood up and said what they do. I'm a digital agency. I work for real estate agents. I'm a digital agency. I work for lawyers. I'm going to pick on you guys. You guys are great people, but you're not supposed to say that. You're positioning yourself in the wrong way. Look, great companies I'm about to list, they do great work. They're big companies, right? Huge is a great agency. But us as smaller agencies, we look at the bigger agencies and we model what they do. Do you think putting a big H on your website is going to get you more business? And when I look at this website, I'm like, all right, are you a search engine? Is it Google, right? It's not going to help. Stop looking at the bigger agencies. If you want to get there, look at how they got there, right? Do we do a scale line? No. Why do we all look the same? Why do we all look like Me Too agencies? We need to stand out. We need to look different. Companies don't buy from the best agencies. Can we agree? They buy from agencies that they know, they trust, and they understand. See, Donald Miller talks about telling a different story. I love this framework of he's developed, and we did this many, many years ago. And his whole concept is around when you meet someone, how are you positioning yourself? Are you positioning yourself as the hero in their story? Because if you're making yourself Batman, there can only be one Batman. You're making them Robin. How many people have dressed up as Robin for Halloween? One person. I've never had anybody. Either you're lying. Did your mom dress you up as Robin? Oh. Wow, very good. All right, well, done the slides. I'm not good at positioning. But Most people don't want to dress up as Robin. How you need to position yourself is as Alfred. You got to position yourself as the trusted advisor. Now, my uncle, he grew up in Long Island. He worked for Grumman, a company that made the F-14 Tomcat. You know, Tom Cruise's and Top Gun, the coolest jet in the world. His job was testing out canopies for bird strikes. Do you know how they test out canopies for bird strikes? They have a chicken gun. So where did my guidance counselor, why did they not tell me? Now, they had dead chickens, and they were firing this chicken gun at the canopy, and they kept breaking it over time, over and over again. Finally, they were like, I need to reach out to someone smarter than us. So they reached out to NASA. NASA wrote them one sentence back, unfreeze the chicken. Holy shit. Like, it would go through a brick wall, right? Meaning we're so close to it, we can't see through the trees. And we're looking at it differently. This had literally happened to me last week. I'm not just making it up like it happened 2 years ago. Literally, and that's why I don't have a picture of it. I'm riding my mountain bike down the mountain. I see this dude on a mountain bike with no seat and the post, but no seat. And I'm like, holy shit, that is awesome. And so I backed up. I was like, I have to see this again. And I realized the seat was in the water bottle holder. And so he must have broke it on the trail. But rather than leaving his bike on the trail, he continued to ride it. Rather than just walking it, he continued to ride it. And that's how I look at when you're starting to change some of these systems in your business. Keep your agency going. Keep moving. Keep riding. It's very uncomfortable, especially if you sit down, but you can do it. And you don't want to do it for a long time. Now, in order to change the positioning, the best thing to do is ask questions. Ask questions. Now, can someone help me out? Do we have a mic somewhere up here? Why is my clicker not working? All right, cool. Now, if you're hurt, my disclaimer is Ryan Dice will be responsible for you. Who can help me? No, I need someone from the audience. All right, come up here. Is this going to be on? All right, cool. It works.
Hello, everyone.
All right, thank you. So I'm Jason.
No
one cares about your name.
No one cares
Let
about me.
Let me tell you how cool I am. And I'm the best agency advisor in the world. I built a big agency. Like, when I do that, what are you thinking if I came up to you at a conference?
Confused?
Confused, and I'm a jerk, right? You're like wanting to walk away. Now, if I said, hey, I'm Jason.
Hi, Jason.
And who are you?
I am Ara Bowman.
Cool. Why did you come to the conference?
To see you, to learn from some of the best.
Very cool. Is there anybody I can introduce you to or help you
Gary
out?
Vaynerchuk. That's why I got the VIP ticket, guys, right
Very
here.
good, very
and
good.
my GoPro.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Let me get you something. Now, who do you want to talk to? Stay right there. Let me get you something. Let me give you for helping to participate. See, you get rewarded for participating. Here's a copy of my book. I hope it scales. All right, thank you very much. Now, everybody wants to talk to the second Jason. No one wants to talk to the first Jason. And all of your websites are like that. When I go to your websites, it all says, check out my awards. Check out how cool I am. Even if you go to your About page, you're like, oh, well, my About page, I'm supposed to talk about myself. If you go to jasonswenk.com/about, I don't talk anything about myself until the very bottom. I ask questions, right? And I also think about how do you position yourself? So you remember I was saying you position yourself by what you do. It's who you help and how you help them. So when I say like my elevator pitch, I'm like, I help agency owners scale faster. That's specific. So I want you to think about that, of how to position. The next system is all around your offering, okay? What is your right offering? So I have another demonstration. Who wants to help me out? Has to be a woman, and you'll see why in a second. All right, come on up. Who are you?
Debbie.
Debbie, nice to meet you. Will you marry me?
No.
Good. Thank you very much. So here's a book for you. Thank you. Very good. Thank you for saying no, because if you said yes, I'd be running the other way. But that's what most agencies are doing. We're pitching our core service right off the bat, right? We're literally going into marriage right away. And it's it's going to cost you a lot of business. Because, see, people are going to tell you no because it's really risky for them. Think about how risky it is to commit to a $50,000 a month retainer for a year. Pretty risky. So how can you build trust with them? You do it by offering them a foot-in-the-door offer. And a foot-in-the-door offer can be something that you slice off of your core offer in order to build trust. And so this is what I call kind of the offering ladder. And I had an agency come to me many, many years ago. I've done this many, many times. And they were an SEO agency. Basically, they sold $5,000 a month retainers. Now, they were on month to month. So I was like, that's not a monthly retainer. That's a car payment that someone can cancel and keep the car. And they also when we started looking at their business, we realized that they were holding on to their clients for maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months. So they were making maybe $30,000 from charging $5,000 a month. And I said, well, what if we do things a little bit different? Let's make it an easier decision so we close the deal a lot quicker and we can start building trust. And I said, let's do like a strategy session, a blueprint for $2,500. Let's do it with them. So many people actually say, well, I'm going to charge you something. I'm going to do an audit. I'm going to go back to my office with all my nerds behind me. We're going to come up with amazing things, and then we're going to send it to the client. That's not going to work as well. If you build it with them, now they can be engaged, and they're going to have buy-in. They're going to understand how we're doing. And then what we're doing is we're positioning the next project because we're saying, hey, do you like this plan? They're like, yes, I love it. I'm like, cool, do you want me to help you with this? And so then what we did is we said, let's go into a project. And I said, how long does it usually take you to get results? He was like, 2-3 months. Cool. Let's do a project for 3 months. Let's charge $15,000. That's what you're charging now. And then when we're in the project, as they start seeing some success, then we're going to say, hey, I've been thinking about your business, and I think we should do this. And then we can start positioning the retainer. Then we would position the retainer at like $9,000 a month for 12 months. So now you're making over $100,000 per account rather than the typical 30. How many people would like to kind of lock that in? And if you ever want to build a scalable business, don't you think you have to have predictable revenue? Especially if you want to get to a point to sell an agency. I do a lot of M&A around agencies. And people will devalue your agency left and right if you don't have long-term contracts. Oh, but Jason, my clients have been with me forever. Yes, but you're not going to be forever at the agency because you just sold. And they're going to chop you off at your knees, right? They're going to throw you up. The next system I realized is prospecting. Now, most people just have kind of one channel, but I truly believe you need multiple channels. Now, if you're relying, that goes back to the very beginning, I was talking about referrals, right? Referrals just aren't scalable. You have to have these channels. You have to have an inbound channel. If you're not producing valuable content, you're going to lose. Now, if you're producing the content that I normally see, how to pick an agency on your blog, you're going to lose. No one cares about that. I literally cringe when I see that because you're not putting out any valuable information for that particular audience. How many people have podcasts that run agencies? Wow. Look around. There's like 5 hands up. If you create a podcast, I'm going to tell you a strategy that is going to crush it for you. And it's crushing it for so many of my clients. And one of my clients is actually in New York, and he's starting to do it, and he is just going to just take over the world. He uses the podcast to create amazing content, but he reaches out to the perfect people that he wants to do business with and has them on his show. What do you think happens when you're interviewing someone? Well, first off, you can ask questions ahead of time so you know what their biggest challenges are. Learn a little bit about their business. Now you're building that relationship. And then at the end, almost always, they'll be like, hey, can you help me out? Like, I want to know more. It is amazing. It is an amazing strategy, and you guys are missing out. Not only, and that's just for kind of outbound, but for the inbound, the content that you create is amazing. Like, do you think Seth Godin would just talk to me for 45 minutes? No. But I had him on the show, and I talked with him for 45 minutes like we're best friends. Amazing episode, amazing individual. I love Seth. The next, I kind of alluded to it a little bit, outbound. If you're not picking up the phone, if you're not doing outreach, you're missing out. You need to actively be going, who is my perfect client? How can I actually help them? And calling. This is not just dialing for numbers. This is like strategery. All right? Of going, how can I help you? Have you ever thought about this? One of my first interviews on the podcast I did 6 years ago, I interviewed Del Ross of IHG, International Hotel Group. I said, how can a smaller agency get in bed with a huge brand? He said, Jason, all these agencies always call me and say, hey, can I take you out to golf? They send me these gifts. They take me out to dinner. Never works. He goes, if someone actually called me up and said, hey, have you ever heard of the molecular whatever? I'm making stuff up now, right? And have you ever heard of that or executed that in the hospitality space? He goes, you got my attention. And they had play money in order to test out agencies. They had, I think at the time, this was 5 or 6 years ago, like $50,000, $60,000 of play money. That's your foot in the door. Call them up and offer them something that can help. Don't just say, we're a digital agency, we want to win your business. You're going to lose. We did this with Porsche. So after we were the agency of record for Lotus cars for many, many years until the British took it all back. And we lost that account. And so at the time we were starting to run some social data where we could actually get and figure out like what's the conversations going on for exotic cars. And we were going to present that to Lotus, but they left us. So what did we do? We called Porsche. Said, hey, Porsche, we have this amazing data that's public knowledge that we want to share with you of some opportunities that you may be missing out on. Do you think they took that call? It's a straight cold call. Heck yeah, they did. And we got that account. The other thing is strategic partnerships. Ryan mentioned that as well. We became the best partner in the world at a time for Sitefinity. They were a content management system. We were one of the best partners for Microsoft. So we figured out who are actually going after our perfect audience and how can we make them superstars. Now, this is not like, hey, Jason, you got a big agency list. Can you blast your stuff? Like, if you do that to me, I'm going to be like, no, go away. All right? Very nicely. Probably not nicely. All right? But if you go up to me and say, hey, how can I help you and you help me? Like you make a deposit before you make a withdrawal. I'll probably help you out, okay? The next system is sales. We're always kind of a lot of times when we do sales, we're kind of this guy. I don't know why everybody always uses this thumbnail. Like you'll probably see this guy a lot throughout the conference. But we're all kind of going into it and we talk to the wrong prospects. I mean, how many times have you've been in a meeting and you're like, I rocked that. And then the process just takes forever. And then like maybe 6 months goes by, you put in all this effort on this pitch deck and you did all this, free concept work and you basically gave away the strategy only to find this. But don't we feel like that? Like that's my favorite movie, by the way, and I love that scene. But like you waste all this time. Well, I want to give you a tool in order to eliminate this. And I call it NBAT. And the first thing is within the first 5-10 minutes of meeting with a prospect, you can do this. Because I remember I would get calls all the time. Hey, Jason, I want to do this new thing. It's like Facebook and Google put together. And I'm like, oh, yeah, sure, I can do that. But I know their budget is like not going to be anything. And then you waste all this time. So the first thing is what's their need? Does it match up? Now you're like, oh, yeah, well, whatever. But really, does this match up with your core offering? Because you're setting yourself up for failure if you do something that you're not supposed to do. Really basic, you know that. The next is budget. So play with me on this. How many people ask for their budget when you're talking to a prospect? Half the room. Why is it always half the room? Okay. All right, keep your hands up. Now, how many people actually get the budget all the time? Keep your hands up. Yeah, look around. Barely anybody. And good job for you guys. You're probably listening to the podcast. I'm going to give you a tool of how to get the budget 99% of the time. All right. So when what do you ask when you're trying to ask for the budget? What's the budget? What do you hear? I don't have a budget. So I was like, cool, I love working with people that don't have a budget so we can not worry about money and we can test out all kinds of cool things. And they're kind of like, right? And you're like, oh, I'm just joking. You have a budget. And then I kind of go through what I call a reverse auctioneer, okay? And it's important to do this. I'll be like, hey, I just need to know if I can help you out and if you're the right prospect for me and I'm the right one for you. What are you trying to stay around? Are you trying to stay around $1 million, $800,000, $700,000, $600,000 and go down, right? The reason why I'm starting high is we're programmed to hear the first number and then we're going to forget all the other shit. So if you go, are you trying to stay around 1,000, 10,000? They're going to remember 1,000. They're always going to hold you to the 1,000. Oh, so your prices start at 1,000? And I'm also trying to freak them out. That's why I'm starting at millions. If I was doing it now, I'd be like, you trying to stay around $1 billion? 500 million? I would start high. See what reaction. Because look, I was in a meeting one time with a company I've never heard of. I rocked this conversation over the phone. You ever feel that way? You're like, there's no way they're not going with me. Go into the meeting. I walk into the boardroom. The boardroom is like this big. I'm like, shit. I was like 25 at the time. And I'm like, ooh. And all these people come in. So I pitch them, an engagement. It was like 20 grand at the time. And they laughed at me. And so I get back to the office and I tell everybody, I'm like, yeah, these people laughed at me. Well, who was it? Berkshire Hathaway. Never heard of them. Small company. Their expectations were up here. So it is important to ask for the budget. Because sometimes you think your price is high, but it could seem like you're selling a Ferrari for $100. Because if I sell you a Ferrari for $100, they're going to be like, what's wrong with it? Is it stolen? Is it a Matchbox car? Right? And so ask for the budget. Now, for the 1% of the time that people don't know the budget and you know that the company has money, say, no problem, I'll sell you my foot in the door where we'll actually map it out and we'll tell you how much you need to spend with me. And you can do it every time. The next, you have to figure out the authority. Are they the authority? Now, these people are sneaky, these prospects. They will try to lie to you. They lied to me. They're like, oh, I'm the decision maker. I can make all the decisions. Bullshit. Even if their title is chief bullshit officer. So I would always ask questions like this. Cool, so how does this need that you need line with your overall business objectives? If you ask a non-decision maker, it calls them out. They're like, oh, I don't know. Or you'll see the blank face, right? I can't really do that bad face. But they have that blank face, and they're like, who knows this answer? Oh, that's Bob. Who's Bob? He's the CEO. Can we get Bob in this conversation? It's a real nice way versus stop wasting my time. The next is timing. How many people have had Darth Vader call you up for wanting a website for the Death Star and wanting it tomorrow? Run. It is okay to say no. I have a saying that there's no such thing as a bad agency client. There is only a bad prospect or a bad process. And you're letting the bad prospects in. But it takes a while to figure this out. It's like a Vegas buffet. You got to try out everything. And like Cousin Eddie's like, ooh, I like this green stuff, or I don't like this yellow stuff, so let's avoid it. So after you qualify them, what are the questions you need to ask in order to position yourself as the choice rather than a choice? First is, what is your biggest issue? Again, these prospects are sneaky. They are lying to you. So you need to figure it out. A lot of times they're like, oh, my biggest challenge is X. But you have to go over here and figure out what is their biggest issue. Once you figure that out, what is the impact? Here's the telltale sign. Do not tell them the impact that you're going to deliver. If I told you I could make you an extra $1 billion, you're going to be like, yeah, whatever. Thanks, Jason, funny guy on stage. But if I started asking you the right questions and helped you figure out, wow, this is how you can add an extra 100,000 in a month. This is how you can add an extra $1 million. And you came up with that impact. You would believe it because you did it, not me. It's kind of like that show I used to watch when I was younger, Columbo, right? He always acted really dumb, but he always asked amazing questions and just leading the guy. Then you have to figure out how important is it to them, because if I'm talking to, well, Warren Buffett's probably a bad example because he's cheap, right? He still goes to McDonald's. But if I said I could save him $1 million, or if he said I would save him $1 million, that might not be big enough. Because now I can follow up with them after I engage. So how many people, like, after you send a proposal, you're like, hey, I'm just checking in, like, right? Like, make a decision yet? I want you to picture me naked with a sign saying, like, please work with me. That's probably very terrifying, too. I'm probably not going to say that on stage ever again. But that's what's happening. So I want to give you a follow-up strategy that's very easy. Hey, Bob, I haven't heard from you in a while, and I wanted to see if you solved that $1 million problem. Oh, no, you haven't? Is that important to you? It's a great follow-up strategy. Also, a quick tip on proposals. How many people have sent proposals and the client goes completely dark, goes silent? Do you want to stop that? Stop sending the fucking proposal. I'm serious. And I'm using bad language for a reason. It is so important. Now, if it is very important for your prospect to get a proposal without chatting with you, without reviewing it with you, I always say, hey, I may not be the best agency for you. And if you ever change, let me know. I'm happy to help. And what always, for the most part, for the true legit ones, they would come back to me and be like, hey, my boss wants to get a proposal. We'll set up a meeting. And then I could set up a meeting. Now, you're probably saying, what about RFPs? Anybody know what 2 winners to every RFP is? One that wins it and the first one out. I also have a meaning for RFPs. Request for punishment and real effing problem, right? So we didn't really do RFPs unless we could, write the proposal or write the RFP, or if we had an in. So I don't want you to waste time. Now, if you're going after just government contracts, you got a lot more patience than I do, and you still have to do RFPs. But if you're anybody else going after any other industry, you should be good. Now, if you're constantly keep saying, like, especially over the next 3 days, you're going to have so much content. If you constantly say, Jason, I'm just too busy, you're not charging enough. One of the easiest ways to grow and scale your agency is actually charging more. But we don't understand the value that we actually deliver. And I'm not sure why. So I want you to start really thinking about, what's the value I delivered to that client? Because that should really dictate the pricing that you charge. And if you don't know the value that you give to your clients, they sure don't. And you're going to be like that one client that would keep them for 3 months. The other thing I forgot to tell you under positioning, it's very important to, you remember when I was saying people buy from the know, trust, and understand? Understand is a really big one. When you're going through your process of how you're going to get the client's results, it's kind of like this. So you remember I told you I race cars, but I also used to teach people how to race cars. I don't know, I guess I've always liked to be a teacher. That's why I love teaching agency owners. And so I used to teach people how to race cars, and one of the first things we would do at Road Atlanta, I'd be like, there's a 90-degree turn. I want you to go through it at 100 miles per hour. And they'd be like, nope, I got a family, I'm good. There's no way I'm going through that corner. But if I could explain them that I had a plan, and I could actually, put it all out there, and then I could demonstrate to them that I could go through that corner at 110. They'd be like, okay, that's cool. And then I'd be like, all right, cool, let's go through it at 60, and then 70 and 80. And that's how we won a lot of deals as well. So when someone would come to us to have us to design a website or a new user experience, I'd say, hey, this is how all the other agencies work. And I describe the process. Other agencies are going to ask you, what websites do you like? Which basically are going to say, which websites are we going to copy? And that's why your whole industry looks the same. And they'd be like, oh, how'd you know? And then I'd be like, well, we're a little different. What we're going to do is we're going to go through this day together where we're going to gather the information and we're going to extract out what we need, because most people are like, I'll know it when I see it. And whenever I hear that, I'm like, right? But if you can ask the right questions, which we do, we're going to get that. And then we're going to design a concept for you. We're going to design one at a time. We're not going to design 3, because when you're designing 3, sorry, been speaking a lot. When you design 3, that means you're going to design one on the plan, design one a little off, and one so far off. And then I would say, look, 25% of the time, we'll nail it down perfect, which is great. Then we'll go on to the next concept. 50% of the time, there'll be a couple little tweaks, and then we'll make the modification. Third time, you'll freaking hate it, but we know exactly what to avoid, and we'll start over, and we'll get it the next time. So I want you to make sure you're communicating how you're going to get them results, because that is so important for you winning the business. Because I think we all can agree that the wrong agencies are winning the business that you want. And there's only one reason, is because you haven't taken it from them. And I want you guys to take it. Now my time is almost up. I've covered 5 of the core systems I told you. There's 3 other ones. If you go to my website, jasonswenk.com, click on My Playbook, and you'll see all the other systems. Make sure you find me, throughout the week. Is it the week or weekend? I can't remember. It's week? We're in the week? I think it's Monday, right? I lose track of time at home. It's so much fun. I'll be around. Come up, see me. I'm happy to help. My whole goal is to be a resource I wish I had when I was running my agency, because I remember how hard it was. So, and if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to take any questions. And since my friends came from Dubai all the way, so come up, get your book. You guys came all the way. I appreciate you guys coming. Thank you very much. All right. You guys have any questions? Accelerating your agency. So, good question. Yeah, here, come get a mic so everybody can hear you. Good.
It's on? Good.
Yep.
When you're purchasing an existing company, an existing agency, how do you enforce if they have contracts?
Great question. That's when you kind of devalue them. So one of the things you should look at is all of your contracts right now should have a transferable clause. So a lot of times when you buy a smaller agency, you're just buying the assets, you're not buying the liabilities. So you can have a faster transaction. And so you're kind of got to make sure, like, if you had, we had LegalZoom as a client. And so if the purchaser wanted that client, we'd have to go to them. If they were just buying us an asset purchase, we have to go to them and literally say, hey, we're getting bought. Can we sell this contract to the acquiring company? Which kind of gives you, pulls your pants down, and you're kind of standing out in the cold, and they can kind of leave you, right? And which is kind of scary. So if you put that in the transferable clause, but you got to kind of assume you're probably going to lose 50% of the clients right away, and then another quarter over time. So a lot of times what I tell people is structure a deal where there's less cash up front, and you're paying them out over time based on performance. So, you're able to kind of put 2 + 2 = 18, but if you lose a client, they're going to be affected, not you. Cool. Great question. Cool. Yeah, come on up.
So there's definitely a whole story behind this, so I won't bore you with the details, but I just want to ask you this question. So if there's a company you want to do business with, but the marketing company who already does business with them are friends of yours, sort of, kind of, and you don't want to hurt them, but you really know you're a better agency to service that client, how do you pretty much squash them very nicely and take?
I mean, yeah.
Any advice on that?
That's a great question. I think it really comes down to kind of you. Like me personally, I'd have to look like, are they a close friend?
No, absolutely not.
Oh, then I would cut them off at the knees, right?
But I go to church with them, so I have to be like a Christian
well,
too.
then
So
they'll forgive you, right?
I hope so. But will God, I guess. I don't know.
God forgives all, right? So they should. I would. I mean, if you can provide a better service and they can't, shame on them. If you want to keep all your clients, do an amazing job and communicate that you're doing an amazing job. Like the other part that many people don't do is what I call benchmarking, okay? So how many times have we lost clients that we've been doing an amazing job with, and then they just leave? And you're like, what the heck is going on? We did a crappy job at communicating the value. So every time I chat with a client, I try to benchmark. I'm like, here's where you were, really bad. Here's where you are now, and I'll always keep my clients. So, yeah, I mean, if they're just church buddies, go after them.
Yeah, bless you.
Yeah, right over here.
Hey, my name is Paul. I'm from Norway. I'm trying to get into media buying. And one of the things that I'm worried about is I'm trying to set up deals with bigger agencies to be their subcontractor. But I will still go after their customers. So I will be competing and collaborating with them. Do you have any advice?
It's challenging. So we used to get white labeled by like Gray and DDBO and Ogilvy, and what we found was it was very challenging because they didn't want to follow our process, but they were using us because we had a good process. So I stopped doing that. And I find it hard to play both ways. And I never liked the model just for kind of being white labeled, but that was me personally, right? You have to go after what you like. So I would look at it going, what is my blue ocean for this? How can I be different than everybody else going after agencies saying, hey, let me do the service? Most of the time what I find when people are kind of white labeling it, they just haven't figured out that right system in order to build that pipeline. So I would focus on that system, right? I mean, like I walked you through it. Get the clarity of who you want, position yourself in a way, create the right offering, and then attack it through the prospecting and figure it out in sales. You do that, you're going to have this predictable pipeline that you can pick and choose the clients that you want. That's what
Okay,
I'm saying.
thanks. Got it.
Right, great question. Yep. Back there. Yep. I guess line up on the, if you want. Oh, and I guess one more question. I'm over time. I look, buzzer.
Okay, I'll be quick. I just found out yesterday that my boss sold the most awesome Ferrari for like $5 to a client who has billions and billions and billions of dollars, in the hopes that later down the line that they'll buy the Ferrari at full price. I know how hard that's going to be. I wonder if you have any advice about how to dig ourselves out of that hole.
Well, tell them why you gave them the engagement, right? So like if I sold the $100 Ferrari, I'd be like, or Lamborghini, I'd be like, look, this is why we're doing it. We're doing it to show you we can do it amazing. Like we're taking a loss on this. And so as soon as we show you results, this is going to be our price. It's going to be an uphill battle because now they're just looking at you as like selling the Polex on the side of the street, right? Like it should be a Rolex.
Okay. Thanks.
So, thank you. All right, guys, thank you very much.
Yeah. Hey, if that was good, give him a really big round of applause.
Thanks,
Thank you.